bar stool she took off her ring.
I wonder what your relationship is between living and writing. Maybe in the practical ways in which you organize your life, but also the ways in which
totally know what you mean.
It is like the thing that you do and that
yeah
sort of makes your world.
No, I know what you mean. I think I absolutely think it changes the way you live life. I think, like, for me, who was kind of like a very intellectual, shy kid that was sort of like living very much inside my own body, like always thinking from like the head forward rather than the heart forward kind of. I think writing has given me that permission to live like heart forward rather than head forward in a way that I do think it's true. Like, you have to live life. Like, I mean, when I was talking about that commune and deciding about whether or not to get in that guy's car and go to the beach, even though somebody didn't know, and, you know, all these things, like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to write about this at some point. And like, this is, you kind of have to live heart forward, like allowing yourself to see things, because you want to have stuff to think about and talk about and put yourself in places that you're not necessarily always comfortable. And I think for me, just given my own personality structure, like, writing gives me permission to maybe do more. Like, it was funny when a lot of the reviews came out about the book, because everybody was like, wow, it's really like bold, or it's really like, you know, bold, or it's brazen, and like, those aren't words that I necessarily would associate with me, like, as a, you know, not that I feel like I'm not bold, but just I never, that's not how I would describe myself, basically. And that was a really good feeling. I was like, okay, like, yeah, you know what, there must be a part of me that like wants to talk about like these kind of moments in life where I've had to feel more bold or brazen or whatever. And so I think it's really changed the way I've lived life. And also just the concept of all of the things you give up to be an artist. Like, my other job was going to be, I mean, I was really like going along the line of being a neuropsychologist. I had like studied with some really great people at Brown. I was with this guy who was like the head of Harvard's like children's hospital, working with that. I had gone to Spain and translated a psychology manual and worked with these kids at the orphanages and done first-person interviews, and I could have written a dissertation about that. Like, that was definitely the line I was going to go down. And I'm sure, like, as a therapist working in Manhattan, you probably make a decent living, and like, you can still think about creative ideas, and like, you get to know people, and it's helping people. And but I just knew there was a part of me that, like, if I didn't try to be a writer, I would regret it my whole life. And having had a parent who I felt like kind of gave up a passion for like just the act of trying to support the family, like, that really decimated my dad, and he was always super creative and always writing novels on the weekends, and then going to be a software engineer during the week. And I was like, I don't want to do, I've seen what that does to people. I don't want that to be me. But then choosing to be an artist, it's like, you just choose a lifestyle that is very specific. I mean, it shaped everything from where you live to what kind of food you can eat, to how much you can travel or not, to the clothes you, like, you know, do you have a winter coat, and are you like, it just a lot of things, you know. But it also, like you were talking about Baldwin, it also, like, you become that kind of strange interlocutor that can like go between circles, because I think artists and writers, like you as a filmmaker and like any, like, you know, a photographer, whoever, like, yeah, like, you can go into circles and people's homes and things that, like, you know, through your artwork, it gives you the entree into those things. And I think that's kind of cool, you know. You're always passing as something, sort of, and through doing that, you bump into circles you wouldn't have otherwise, you know. It's definitely widened the world, too. Like, I mean, I did grow up in a small town, so it's not like so far they haven't like sent me on an amazing trip to go talk about, like, although I'm available like for any lifestyle magazine that wants to send me somewhere, I really am ready. And I can bring a photographer who can take some good photos. But no, like, you know, it like enlarges your circle of, just because you can like dream about Spain and write about Spain, and that's cool.
Are those the types of things, those experiences and those people, like, that inspire you the most to write? Or is it like the things that you read in books, or some combination of that? Is it being able to have an experience that you know you can write about? Is it all those things? Is it reading a passage in Baldwin and being like, I want to do that, but this way? Or no, is it art? Is it
Yeah.
Film? Is it photography? Like,
Yeah.
music? Is it Kenny Rogers?
Yeah, I think I've never really been inspired by other, not because, like, it's not like I would read a book and then be like, oh, I need to write that book. Like, I love reading, but I never feel like I'm writing to be in dialogue with other books. I think my inspiration comes from, like, on a language level, from music, for sure. I grew up, like, playing classical music on the piano and, like, studying the Suzuki method and really, like, hearing music. And that's definitely how I think about stories. Like, those were the first stories I told myself, kind of. And I think that transitioned into, like, then like Joni Mitchell and all those people. So that like, music is a big part of it. And I really love, like, photography and video also. I mean, for me, I feel like looking through a book of, like, Eccleston's photos and then seeing a documentary about him and his wife and how they lived, like, their crazy drunk life in Tennessee, and that I find so inspiring, you know. I'm a really visual person. Like, there's that great line at the opening of Frederick Jameson, that theorist, wrote about film in this book called Signatures of the Visible, and he writes all about, like, kind of, you know, famous films might get shown in film school. But in the opening of the essay, he says this thing where he says the visual is essentially pornographic, and I always take that to mean that his further argument is basically just that, like, if you had to decide, like, on one ontological way of ordering the universe, his argument would be that ontology would have to be visual, because the visible world is so much a part of what we do, especially in this, like, post sort of consumer society where man's always creating things and then organizing the things they've created. But I always relate to that line, like, the visual is essentially pornographic, in the sense that, like, when you think about the act of just looking at things, like, as a naked body, that chair, this lamp, this fire, you, like, you know, I mean, it's like looking at a naked body and studying it and feeling seduced by it, or feeling off-put by it, or and definitely as a kid, whenever we used to be able, like, go on trips and I would take photos, my parents would always be like, you took the photo of, like, the small detail, like, we can't really be sure what that is a photo of. It's like, you know, the 1 inch part of the couch where maybe I was looking at, like, a stitch or something, you know. So yeah, I don't know if I'm like a, what do you call them, a leveler or a sharpener on Sebastiano's scale, but I think I'm probably a leveler, and then once I've leveled everything, then I, like, sharpen in onto little details because they're not, like, scary anymore, kind of.